Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am super excited for this particular video because this is where I'm going to tell you that for the first time in the history of Nigerian chess, we have a junior that has been crowned as the national chess champion of the year 2024. Now I'm going to be showing you the second game that was played because the third game for some reason wasn't aired very well. So the first game was won by Akintoye Abdulrahman. That is the FM that we discussed in the previous video, who was number one, and Tersee was following him behind with 6.5 points. Now, the second game is the game that was played. Now, the second game is this game that we have right here in front of us. And we're going to dive right into the game. I'm not going to show you any more standings anymore. We're just going to go straight into the game and then we see how the game went. So Tersee is playing this game with the black pieces and Akintoye Abdulrahman is playing this game with the white pieces. Actually, I'm going to switch this orientation to black because black is the winner. Okay, so we had d4, the queen's pawns opening. We had d5, pawn to c4, queen's gambit, pawn to e6, the queen's gambit declines on the board, folks. Now we had knight to f3, knight to f6, the normal moves that we all know. I think this is the Catalan, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a fan of the d4 openings because I feel like they are not very, why will I play d4? e4 is better, because it's more sharp, it's more aggressive. Even though d4 also brings aggressive lines, but I just don't like to play d4 that much. Well, I'm not the star of the show here. These guys are. So we have g3, which I believe is the Catalan opening. And then we had pawn to c6. I like how black is just trying to play solid in this position. We had pawn to g2. And I must mention that this is not the Armageddon. So the Armageddon is a section where black is not in a must-win situation. Black is in either you draw or you win the game. But then you get less time with the black pieces. But white has more time, but it's a must-win situation. Yeah. So, but this is like a normal game, 10 minutes rapid game. So I'm not going to even be punishing them for their move mistakes or something like that. So far, so good. Everything is happening well. We have pawn bishop to d6, king castles with the rook. We have king to g8. Sorry, what did I just say? King castles again. Queen to c2. Knight to e4, putting the knight on a very good square. So everything is happening normally here. We have everybody trying to develop their pieces. We have knight to d2. Pawn to f5. Pawn to f5 is a very good move because you want to attack basically the king side with the black pieces here, and the white is trying to attack the queen side. So we had pawn to b3, knight to d7, and then bishop to b2. We have queen to f6, knight back to e1. So knight to e1 looks like it's not a very good move, but the purpose behind this, I guess, is to reroute the knight to the center of the board. Yeah. Because the knight doesn't really do much on this square. We don't have a dark squared bishop to help to do anything, to do any big thing with the knight here. And this guy is blocking this pawn from moving forward. So knight to e1 is a good move to reroute the knight. And it's actually the best move that the engine suggested to show you how these guys are really fighting to see that they win the championship. So we had knight to e1 and then queen to h6. Of course, hitting this guy is one of the reasons why, but probably preparing for moves like g5 in the future, or just moving the queen to attack the knights. We had pawn to e3, and then we had knight to f6, knight to d3. As you said, reversing the knights. That's why he went knight to e1. We had bishop to d7, just developing the bishop, knight there, putting the knight on a better square. Now this knight is strong on f3 because at least they can defend each other when they land on e5, when anyone lands on e5. So we have bishop to e8, trying to put the bishop on a good square because the bishop on d7 is not a good square, and this position is not a very sharp position, so it's kind of slow. You can take your time to reroute your pieces around the board and stuff like that. So we had knight to e5, knight to g5, knight to e5, knight to g4, pawn to h3. So the attack has begun now. We have we have knight takes on e5, we have pawn takes on e5. Bishop to e7. Everything is still okay. Nothing much is happening. The engine prefers white's position here, but the game is still anybody's game. We have pawn to a4, rook to d8, pawn takes. Everything is still happening very okay. We have knight to f4 and then pawn to g5. So now black is beginning the attack on the king side. Okay, so we had knight back to e2 and then we have bishop to g6, pawn to f3, and now this is a mistake from white side. Okay, so what did black play? Black played knight back to c4 to c5, and black has to actually be very careful here. So I don't punish black for this move. And also you can see that black, okay, I don't know if you can see, but black's time is, or you can see. So black has, or you cannot see. Oh boy. The time is not even correct on the, never mind. Black, what I'm seeing here is that black has 5 minutes on the clock. Sorry, 6 minutes, and white has 5 minutes. So you don't want to take too much time to calculate into the positions. But the best move for black here was actually to capture on this square. And because the bishop looks at, oh my god, bishop looks at the queen, if the knight captures, then you can push pawn to f4 and the queen has to move, and then you can capture the knight. And it's kind of, now black has an extra pawn, right? And bishops are okay. The bishop will not go to c5 immediately, but the bishops are active. This guy is going to look for a way to become active very soon. I don't know exactly how the bishop will get active, but I know it's going to get active very soon. And then apart from that, we just have an extra pawn, really. And there's no way you can just go after this pawn. If you go back to capture the pawn with the queen, then now bishop can land on c5. Yeah. So what happened in the game? Knight went to c5, and then we had pawn to b4. Now pawn to b4, as you can see, is a blunder by the engine. The best move was to play pawn to f4, because pawn to f4 does a lot of things. First of all, it blocks this bishop from attacking the queen. Secondly, it stops you from oh, now the knight's not on e5 anymore, but it's basically stops it from attacking the queen, and then it also stops black's attack on white's king side. Yeah, so that was the only move in the situation that was going to save that was going to keep white like in the lead. That was not the only move, but like it's the one that keeps white in a higher lead. We had pawn to b4, and now black has a very, very, very good move. And because Tersee is the one who won this championship match, he played the best move in the position. He played pawn to f4, and it looks as if no, our knight is hanging or something like that, or we're going to lose the game because now we've lost our knight. No, what? If this happens, we'll have bishop takes on c2, easy peasy, and then the game is a win, right? So because of the lack of pawn to f4 played, this was possible. And you cannot even go after this guy because you lose this guy. You cannot capture any of the pawns because you lose the queen. So the queen had to move. So we had queen move to c3, and then now we had knight to d3, right? Just improving the position. Now black is just hitting white's position, or hitting white's king, trying to look for a good attack on white's king. This is also a threat. You see all of this stuff. So we had pawn takes on f4, and then we had bishop takes on b4. You see, so black's position is very harmonious here. White has to just try and defend this position. If not, he's going to lose the game. But black also has to be careful because there are threats like pawn to e6 and queen to h8 kind of threats. So black has to also be careful, right? So we had queen to b3, and then we had pawn takes on f4. Okay, pawn push, and then we had queen to h4. It's just black is just trying to just look for how black can win this position without any stress. We had bishop to a3, and then we had pawn to c5. So the engine doesn't like this move, obviously, as you can see from the evaluation bar. But then the best move here was just to capture. You capture, queen captures, or rook capture. Or let's say queen captures is the best move. Then you can go rook to e8, and now you're hitting this pawn. There's no way that black can defend this pawn. There's no that white can defend the pawn, rather. It's not necessary to like be to try to go for the attack too much. because once you have two pawns like this, you have two passed pawns. Your pieces are like active. Your knight is on this square, hitting all of the major squares you can land on this outpost. You don't have to worry much. You have this open file. You don't have to worry much about winning the game anymore, right? Because you're going to just easily win the game. But I guess they were all fighting with time, so they had to try and convert the game very well. So black tried to go for the king still by playing bishop to c5. We had bishop captures and knight captures. So we had queen to going to b4, and then we had pawn to b6. Knight to this square, and this is a mistake. But then rook to c8 was played. Rook to c8 is not a very good move. The best move was to play knight to d3 here to have a fork on the queen and the pawn, right? And the queen cannot defend the pawn now, because if the queen moves to d6, then the rook is going to capture, and the knight is blocking the queen from being able to defend. And the queen cannot land on any of these two squares because the knight is going to capture. Okay, so that would have been better. But then now by playing this move, after this knight to d3 move, now the queen can land on this square. Again, I am not going to say too much because they had very less time on the board. In fact, right now, Tersee had 2 minutes and White had 4 minutes. So, not their fault. We had rook to d7, and from this position, it looked like black was winning before, but then black lost the advantage from this rook to c8 move, and then this blunder as well, this inaccuracy as well. The game became drawn. It's hard to actually play and convert this kind of positions, because when you get too ambitious, you can end up losing the game. Okay, and you can see that black got ambitious when he pushed his bishop back and gave that check, and it lost him some advantage. But then let's go back to the position. So we have this, and then queen went to e6 check, bishop went back to block, and then queen to f6. So queen to f6. Queen to f6 was a blunder. The best move to play was to play queen to f. What? Queen to f5. Hitting the knight to hit the knights, right? But then I wanted to find the reason why queen to f6 was a blunder. And this is high level chess, so just you have to take a lot of time if you want to get this position right. But it's more like a positional kind of a mistake from White than a tactical one. So just pause the video and try to see whether the exchange is good for black, or whether black had a checkmate or something like that. Okay, so if you're able to find the correct answer, then that's very good for you. You know your positions well. If you look at the board very well, what you can see is that black has these 2 passed pawns, and black is just not one move away from having 3 passed pawns. And when you have passed pawns like this in an end game, then it is very, very good for you. Again, they did not have much time on the clock, so I'm not going to say too much. Or I'm not going to blame them. But the best move here was actually to exchange the queens. And I don't know why White went for the queen exchange and not for queen to f5, because if you look at this position well, you don't want to have any the queen exchange. Your queen is doing well because the queen is the only developed piece. All of the other pieces are not very developed. They're not very active. The knight is the only one that's active, but black has 1, 2, and even these rooks are active because they're helping these passed pawns. So going for the queen exchange doesn't really make much sense in this position. And actually, the only move for black in this position, the only good move was to capture the queen and have this and utilize this pawn, these passed pawns, to be able to win the game, right? So what did we have? We had pawn to b5. Pawn to c5 would have been good as well, and now you can play pawn to b5, but then it doesn't matter. It's still the same thing in the end. So we had knight to f5. We had rook to c7. Rook to d3. Knight to b2, and then rook to d4. So rook to e1 would have been better, but then it doesn't really matter anymore. So rook to d4, and then we had pawn to c5. Rook takes on f4, pawn to e4, and then rook to e7. We had king to f8, and then we had rook to f5, and here we had pawn to d3. And this is where the the live stream of the game stopped. I don't know what happened, whether White resigned here, but then this is just purely a win for Black, because how can you stop how can you stop this from happening? If you try to stop with your rook, bishop will capture. If knight captures, bishop captures. There's nothing you can do about it. If you try to stop with your knight, with your rook, the knight is going to capture. So there was nothing that actually that Black could do. And then you have also two that White could do rather. You also have two pawns that are about to queen, and it's just GG's from here for White or for Black. So I'm guessing that White resigned in this position, and at the end of this game we had it 2-2. Sorry, 1-1, and now they played an Armageddon. I'm going to gist you because they didn't stream it. They streamed it, but then it went off halfway, still in the opening. So they had an Armageddon. Tersee had the white pieces, and in an Armageddon you want to win with the white pieces. If you draw, it's a loss. They count it as a loss, and then but the advantage you have is you have time advantage. You're playing with the white pieces. Normally, if you're playing with the white pieces, you're the one who has the initiative. But then Black has the option of either drawing or winning you, and then Black has little time. So Tersee had the white pieces in the third game, and then Abdulrahman had the black pieces, and it ended up with Tersee winning and becoming the first junior to become Nigeria's champion in the year 2024. So I hope you enjoyed this series. I might do one more for the female section just to give you a brief of what happened, and then feature one game in that video. Let me know what you think about this series and what you think about the competition. And I really want to congratulate Tersee. He did very well. His coach, his team, everyone that helped him in the tournament, they really did well for him. He's just 17 years old. He's already Nigeria's champion. His rating is almost 2300 now. He's going to probably be looking for an IM title next year, and probably even a GM title very soon. So I just want to tell him to keep it up, and he really did well in this competition. Really, really. That's it for now, people. I'll see you in the next video. That will probably be the last one for this series. Bye bye.